Hi everyone. How you guys doing? Hope everyone is doing well and hope you had a good week. So didn't manage to stream yesterday or before yesterday. Just got really tired. My schedule has been absolutely insane lately. The amount of workload that I have is crazy. I I have a full-time job doing React Native development in the morning, so that's 8 hours. And then I'm teaching at night, and then I have to do YouTube. Plus, I have to run my game studio. The workload is insane. Anyways, here we are. Not complaining, kind of complaining, but not complaining. Ooh, by the way, I have been playing Halo 5, Halo Infinite, not 5, Halo Infinite recently. The entire week last week just been playing Halo 5, Halo Infinite. It's such a good game. Such a good game. I've never played the Halo game before. Right, well, that's kind of a lie. I played Halo 1 on my original Xbox 360, and then I played Halo 2. I played like an hour, and then Halo 2 an hour. I never got into the game, and then I played Halo 3 for like another hour or two. Never was really super interested in it. But the Master Chief Collection came out, I don't know, a while back, like a year ago, I think. I've been playing it on and off, and I've been really enjoying Halo. I've been really enjoying Halo. Like back in what 2006, 2007, people would play Halo 3, they would play Modern Warfare 2 and Battlefield, right? And all the kids, the lovely kids back then would fight. They're supposed to be adults now, or hopefully they're adults now. They would fight which game is better: Halo versus Modern Warfare 2, versus Battlefield, Bad Company 2, and whatever, right? And then Crisis kind of came into the mix. Crisis wasn't that popular. Crisis 2 multiplayer, and yeah, so people would make LAN parties and play Halo 3, which was awesome. At least for them, I think it was awesome for them. Never had LAN parties for Halo. If we had LAN parties, me and my friends would play Warcraft 3, Frozen Throne, Age of Empire, 2, Command and Conquer Zero Hour, Diablo 2, right? Those were our LAN party games. Counter Strike 1.6. Never gotten into Halo, but now that I think about it, I'm like, okay, people used to have Halo LAN parties. I understand now why. The game is super fun. Like it is super super fun. I cannot believe how fun Halo is. And so recently I've just been well, I mean last week I've been just playing the Halo 5 Halo Infinite. And I was just looking at the game and wondering Halo is just well, you have the basic mechanics of every single first person shooter, right? It's the same generic thing. Quake kind of it's similar to Quake, where you pick up weapons around the map. It's similar to Modern Warfare 2, where well you have a gun and you're shooting it. Um, it's similar to every single first person shooter. First person shooter. Why is this fun? Like, why is this so much more fun than every other game I played? Like, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of good first person shooter games. Um, Warzone is fun. Well, it used to be fun, at least when it worked. Battlefield Bad Company 2, one of the funnest games I've ever played in my life. I love Bad Company 2. I remember um, coming from class in college in 2011, 2010, finish class, go home, work on like an SFML personal project. It's funny. I worked on SFML back then. I'm working on SFML now. But working on an SFML like game, tiny game project, and trying to learn C++ and so on and so forth. And at night, I'll play Bad Company 2 all night. Oh, those were the fucking days, man. Such good days. And so, yeah, Bad Company 2 just is the shit. Um, and so I was just thinking like, wow, what makes Halo Infinite so much more fun than a lot of the games that I played, right? It feels like every first person shooter that comes out, it's the same old shit. At least to me. But Halo is just so much fun, and I ended up with the conclusion of map design is absolutely fucking fantastic. The amount of time it takes to kill a person is high, unlike any other game. Right? It takes a while. You need like 36 bullets to kill a single person, and by that time you ran out of bullets for like your default gun. Your pistol is goddamn strong. So much stronger, so much more powerful than your assault rifle. And just the variety of weapons and pickups, and it's the same. And you kind of use the same combo over and over. You go ahead, you shoot someone for a couple of bullets, you throw two grenades, and you one tap them with a melee, and that just finishes them off, right? And you kind of use that combo over and over and over. And I think it's just that combo, plus the weapon pickups that's in the map, plus the map design, plus you're playing some classic game modes like pick up like capture the flag or domination, just hold the point for amount of time. Pick up the skull, the game mode was called. I don't know. There's a ball that you have to pick up and hold. Let's pick up the skull, something along these lines. Such a fucking fun game. I did not like the big battle thing. So they have this mode where I think 24 players versus 24 players or 16 versus 16, something like that. It's big battles, I think it's called. I did not enjoy that. That was garbage. That was really garbage. What is was the modes that I really liked is the 4v4, the 5v5. 5v5? No, 4v4. It was the 4v4 game modes, which is capture the flag, hold the skull, and team deathmatch. Team deathmatch is not that much fun, but objective games are nice. And uh, I cannot get enough of that game. It's so fucking good. And I cannot believe, for the life of me, I cannot believe that Microsoft made the game free. The multiplayer, at least, free. It's so good. So good. What kind of um what kind of makes me sad is the fact that I bought the campaign, right? I bought Halo 3 campaign. It's coming out 3rd of December, by the way. Not Halo 3, Halo Infinite. Jesus Christ, you know what? Pause on that thought for a second. I was watching some of my videos, the recordings of SFML, just randomly, because today I was like, I am worried that some of the things that I explained weren't explained that well. And so what I would do is rewatch some of my videos just to make sure that I explained the things well and I got my point across well enough. And so I was watching some of my videos, and a bunch of videos when I'm trying to explain something, I completely say different things than what I mean. So for example, I'm trying to explain what a reference is, and then I say I'm passing a function when I'm supposed to say I'm passing a variable. Something along these lines. I'm just in my head, I mean something, but the words that are coming out of my mouth are completely different things. And so that's really freaking bad. Um, so in some of the videos, I just put a comment saying, and a timestamp, putting a comment saying I meant to say this, not what I said, and not what I meant to say this, but in the video I said that. So please excuse that, right? So I need to kind of focus when I'm explaining things and kind of yeah. Anyways, going back to the whole Microsoft thing, I cannot believe the game is free, Halo Infinite, and I cannot believe how good it is. What really kind of not pisses me off. What kind of really a little bit ticks me off kind of annoying that I bought the campaign, Halo Infinite, coming out 3rd of December. Um, so the reason I went on that rant a little bit for the video thing, rewatching my videos, is I'll give you an example. Right now, I meant to say Halo Infinite. Well, not now. A few minutes ago, I meant to say Halo Infinite, and I said Halo 3. In my head, I said Halo Infinite, but what I actually said is Halo 3, and sometimes I don't notice. So I mix up things when I'm talking. It's just kind of stupid. Anyways, um, game is good. This is the third time I try to repeat this point. Game is good. Game is free. Coming out 3rd of December. The campaign. I bought the campaign, right? And I pre-order games, and I know I shouldn't, because you pre-order a game, and you're like, okay, this is Battlefield. Let's go on Battlefield, for example. I pre-ordered Battlefield 2042, and I'm like, okay, this is Battlefield. How, in all reality, how badly can they fuck it up? It's DICE. Come on. It is DICE. DICE are making or they have one of the best game engines in the world. They have the most talented people that you can ever employ in the world working for them. And I'm just gonna pre-order Battlefield 242. I played the beta. I had a shit ton of fun in the beta. Yes, there were bugs. Yes, there were a shit ton of issues. And going into the game, I already knew, like, it's gonna be buggy. It's a Battlefield game. They're always buggy, right? And this is not an excuse that should be set for the industry, right? Just like Bethesda game, you're like, okay, I'm buying a Bethesda game. I expect it to be buggy, but I'm buying it anyways. That sets a precedent that developers can get away with shit like that. And so you vote with your wallets, right? So when you pre-order a game, you're like, okay, I don't care, which is unfortunate, but yeah, I don't care. Well, I don't care that much. Look, as long as the game doesn't crash, and as long as the game doesn't have horrible bugs, I'm okay with it not being super polished. They can work on it post-launch because I really want to fucking play the game. So I pre-ordered Battlefield 2042, and in my head I'm like, how much can they fuck it up, really? Like, in all reality, how bad can it be? And I played the beta, early access. I'm like, okay, this is good. I like the game. Yes, it has issues. Yes, at least it's not crashing, or didn't crash for me. Yes, it has balancing issues. Yes, it's not, the animation is fucked, the audio is fucked, this is fucked, right? But from underneath it, from the base gameplay, the actual gameplay is fun. I like the game. I enjoyed the game, right? I said, okay, cool. Game launches. Open the game. I realized I was watching a video of SkillUp, YouTube channel. If you don't know who SkillUp is, Google him. He's fucking amazing. I love him to death. He's awesome. SkillUp makes a review about the game, and I usually don't watch reviews. This is supposed to be an SFML thing, by the way, and I'm just going on a rant right now, but don't worry about it. SkillUp makes a video, and he's like, "Hey, I played Battlefield, and it's not good. It's really not good, and here are the issues. You shouldn't buy the game. You should wait." And I'm like, "Come on. That can't be that bad, right?" And then he talks about the game, and he says that there's a bunch of game modes. The game is fun, but there's a bunch of game modes. There's the Portal game mode where you can play old Battlefield games or old Battlefield maps with Battlefield old maps and weapons, right? Like Battlefield Bad Company 2, Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4 maps, right? In Battlefield 2042. And I'm like, that is fucking sick, because one of my favorite games of all time is Battlefield Bad Company 2, right? And so the game launched. I immediately joined a server for Battlefield Bad Company 2 because I really fucking love that game to death. Like, I love it to death. Such a good game. I spawn in. People, it's a rush map, right? people apparently don't know how to fucking play Rush, because I'm pretty sure that in the past 3 Battlefield games, the Rush game mode has not been a popular game mode, or no one plays it, right? If you don't know what Rush is, it's essentially the idea of you have 2 bombs, you have to arm the bombs. One team has to arm the bombs, the other team has to defend the bombs, right? And then if you get both bombs armed and they explode, you move on to the next section of the map, and the next section of the map, and then you're done, right? Where Conquest, you have to capture and hold the flag, an area, and so on and so forth, right? And so a lot of people play Conquest, not a lot of people play Rush, or at all. And so Battlefield Company 2, in 2042, we're playing that map, and it's a Rush game mode, and we're losing horribly. Like, I joined mid game, and we are losing really badly. And so I'm like, okay, well, hey, at least this is Battlefield Bad Company 2. I have the weapons. It looks awesome with the new engine. The lighting's fantastic. The graphics are fantastic. The gameplay is pretty much the same gameplay. This is awesome. Yes, DICE, you did it. Holy shit. Game ends. Game crashes. Like, motherfucker, are you kidding me? Alright, well, yeah, that was that. That was fun. It's 2 a.m. Alright, time for bed. Have to wake up at 8 a.m. for work. Cool. Thanks, DICE. Tried it a few days later. Game crashed again. Like, okay, well, we're done with Battlefield 2042. Go on Steam, and I see the game being fucking trashed to all hell. It has like a 22 positive review rate, which is horrendous for a Battlefield game. And so yeah, when I usually pre-order games, I'm like, how bad can they fuck it up, right? And most of the time, the answer to that question is, they can fuck it up really, really badly. And so, okay, well, that's fine. It's fantastic. Good job, DICE. Well done. And pretty much every other company for the past, like, what, 2 years now? Every company that was supposed to be a good company, their name is being dragged through the fucking mud. Yeah, Blizzard is trash. Blizzard is not Blizzard anymore. It's Blizzard Activision. Blizzard stopped being Blizzard in 2004. So whatever. It's Blizzard Activision now. Is trash. Bethesda is trash. EA is... People hate EA a lot. I don't hate EA as much. Kind of like their games, but it's trash. BioWare. For fuck's sake, BioWare. The RPG kind of AAA studio that makes the best games out there is... Well, they released Anthem. That was a fucking disaster, wasn't it? Right? So every AAA game studio is fucking garbage, right? And so Halo Infinite launches, and I'm like, hey, let's pre-order this. How bad can it be? And it turns out it's not fucking bad at all. Microsoft did an unbelievably good job, and now I'm going to my point. Like, I did a full circle. I'm going back to my point. Halo Infinite is fucking amazing. It's free to play, which I cannot believe that's a thing. And, yeah, it's a great fucking game. So I don't want to update. Fuck off. And so I buy the campaign. I'm like, okay, it's a Halo game. I gotta buy the campaign. I gotta play the campaign, man. So I do that. The only thing that kind of ticked me off is that I really wish... So in Halo Infinite, the multiplayer, you have Battle Pass, obviously. You have coins, you can buy skins and shit. And I was like, okay, guys, I bought the fucking campaign for $60 or however the fuck much. Can I not get a few coins in the multiplayer? Like, can you not be like, hey, you spent $60. Here's like 1,000 credit or 2,000 credit for you. Like 1,000 credit is what, $10, something like that. So here's some free credit. And I was kind of ticked off about that. Other than that, the game is fucking amazing. Love Halo. Been playing it non-stop for the past week. highly recommend you get on that train. And I believe it's the highest played game right now. So if I go to the stats, where's Halo? Here, Halo Infinite, fourth. Who the fuck is still playing New World? Apparently a lot of people. Halo Infinite, fourth most played game. So, Battlefield. People are playing Battlefield. If you're actually playing Battlefield, Jesus Christ, what a shame. Such a good game, or was such a good game. Well, decent game. Apparently it's not good because it's garbage. Yeah. Anyways, that was my whole thing on Halo, Battlefield, and what have you. And I can't believe I've been ranting for 20 minutes. So yeah, that's my week. Anyways, going back to SFML and what we've been doing recently. Here's my guy, right? He's moving. He's chilling. I have my box collider around him, my invisible box collider. Well, it's not invisible because you can see him. He's shooting bullets. He is just enjoying his life. Bunch of box collider here. We got collision detection to work. And so what I want to do now is I would like to shoot a bunch of bullets. Well, the first thing I want to do is render some text. I want to render some text on top of the player and the enemy, and that text would be the enemy and the player health. And essentially, what I want to try to do today is reduce the enemy health if a bullet collides with the enemy. So let's have a to-do list here. So one, I like to reduce enemy health when bullet hits enemy. Destroy bullet when bullet hits enemy. Destroy bullet when bullet goes out of the screen. All right. So I would like to do all that today. I don't know if I'll manage to do that, but we'll see. Yeah. Let's get crackling. And after this, so I'll do these. It will have a little bit of gameplay. Maybe we'll have an AI, or we'll do an AI. So enemy, follow player, spawn, multiple enemies. Yeah, we'll do that at some point, like the next stream. And then I kind of want to stop here for a little bit, because I'm really excited to do the editor. I really want to do the editor, the game editor. So I want to be able to create the editor so we can actually build some maps for this game. Because this is where my passion really lies in building tools and building the engine of the game rather than the gameplay itself. The gameplay is fun and all, but like I would like to build the editor. Like I'm looking forward to do that. Like really looking forward to do that. And so we'll do these. I was thinking maybe I should do the editor today, but I don't want to leave you guys like here. Like I don't want to just have this. That's all we have from the game. We shoot bullets and nothing happens, right? We want to have some gameplay just to get everyone kind of excited and kind of happy about where we are in the game. Just move a little bit forward, and then do this, right? Spawn some enemies, kill some enemies. Just have a little bit of a gameplay loop, small gameplay loop, to be a little bit fun. And so for those who enjoy the gameplay part of this series, they have this. And for those who enjoy the engine building, kind of editor building and tool building of this series, will enjoy that, the editor part, right? Either way, we have to make the editor. Either way, we have to finish the game and release the game. And that's kind of the plan, is to finish and release the game. And so, yeah, that's we have to do it either way. But yeah, we'll do it now. Well, not now, the editor, but we'll do the thing now. Anyways, so let's see what's on the first list. Reduce enemy health. Well, let's read. Well, 0. Programmer starts from 0. That's the song I'm making. Programmers like to start from 0. All right. I would like to render text on screen, please. There are a lot of optimizations that we need to do for the game. Right now, the game, well, the game kind of run horribly right now, just with the fact that we're shooting bullets and we're never destroying them, and so we're spawning bullets over and over and over, and we're updating their location over and over and over, which is super inefficient. So we gotta fix that, right? The other thing we gotta fix, shit, I was just thinking about it. Damn it, it was literally on the tip of my mind. Mind, tongue, same. Um, I wanted to do something. What do I want to do? Uh, what did I want to do? There's something I wanted to do. We're talking about optimization. We're talking about bullets. Talking about things moving. God damn it, I forgot. Whatever. Must have not been that important. Oh, yes! I need my FPS. Okay, so programmer starts at -1. Or programmers like to start at -1. Not 0 anymore, apparently. I mean, I can fix that. Programmers like to start at 0. There's a song. I'm super talented, by the way. I can draw things. I can sing. I do music, programming. I'm a very multi-talented person. You wanna see my art? I'll show you my art. Here you go. Hold on. Give it a second. Give me a second. Art. Where's art? Oh, look at that. Ooh, ooh, ooh. There you go. $1 million right there. Shut the fuck up. Just all right. I need to show FPS. So the thing is, the only way I can show FPS right now if I run Fraps, and Fraps is a program that was made in 1752 in the Dark Ages, and apparently the Dark Ages are, well, they started in 1752. Who would have thought? And so the problem is the only way I can see my FPS is by using Fraps, and I really don't want to fucking do that because this is a really old software. I would like to render that. I would like to render my FPS in the game, right? So I think that's the first thing I want to tackle, because last session, what we did is we fixed all the delta time stuff. So I'd like to render my face. I was supposed to render my face, and I didn't do that. One other thing, I completely forgot to commit all my code. So let's do that right now. Hey, hey, Mind, how you doing? I'm glad you're here. Um, so we gotta commit our code. So what did we do? We added our limited FPS to 360 FPS. What else did we do? Added delta time clock. What else did we do? Math. Added AABB. What else? Rendered debug AABB. Access aligned bounding boxes. Okay. For skeleton, I'm pretty sure there's an E here. Skeleton and player. Alright, that's all we did. So just we do title delta time plus AABB. Oh man, Fraps is a legendary software. Um, but I don't know what happened to the developers. I don't know why they kind of just stopped. It kind of sucks. I like I used to I remember my first YouTube video that I ever posted on the internet, recorded on Fraps. It was a Modern Warfare 2. Um, I played on I pirated Modern Warfare 2 because I didn't have enough money to buy the game. Got Fraps, pirated Fraps, recorded an online game, and posted it on YouTube. And I think I wish I had that video. I think I lost the password and email to that YouTube channel. But yeah, good times, good days. Now I just use Fraps for FPS. I mean, it works for DirectX 11 and OpenGL, but not DirectX 12. I'm sure there's a newer software, but I can't be bothered to find one. Too lazy to do that. Anyways, it's fine. We don't need fraps anymore. We're gonna just render our frame rate in the game, in the engine itself. So that's kind of the goal today. Alright, I mean, what we're doing, we are kind of, oh, we were kind of. We were printing delta time before. So if I do cout delta time sticky and run this. By the way, for those who don't know, instead of pressing the play button, you can just do F5. Press F5 to render kind of the game. I'm running at 2 milliseconds. Okay, can we lock this to like 60, please? I would like to see something. Just want to make sure delta time is, I mean, it's supposed to work. Last time I checked, it was working. Alright, yeah, delta time is running at 17 milliseconds. 16 milliseconds, right? So that's 60 FPS. So that's correct. So now all I have to do in order to show the actual frame rate, I just need to multiply by 60. No, multiply by 1,000. I think no. Wait, hold on. What? Calculator? If I have 16 milliseconds, I multiply by 60. No. 16 milliseconds, 16.66 multiplied by 60. That's 1 second. 1,000 divide by 16 points. Hold on, I forgot the math. Yeah, 60 FPS. So 1,000 every second. I basically divide 1 second by my milliseconds, and that's my frame rate. Sorry, I just joined. What is the main goal today? Display. Yeah, so I have a few things that I want to do. I want to show my frame rate. I want to render text on the screen. I want to be able to reduce the enemy health when the bullet hits the enemy, destroy the bullet when it hits the enemy, and destroy bullets when they leave the screen. So we'll do all that today. If I still have energy to do this, make the enemy follow the player and spawn a bunch of enemies, we'll do that today. If not, I'll do this for the next stream, maybe tomorrow. And then I really want to jump into the editor and start making the editor, because I want to be able to build maps for the game, and the way we do that is by doing the editor. Technically, you don't need an editor, but I kind of want to do it. It's kind of fun, so we'll do that. So yeah, we'll just do this section today. If I have energy, we'll do this, and then the editor at some point later some point. All right, so as I was saying, I'm rendering my delta time. So my delta time essentially is how long it takes to render a single frame. And so right now it's around 15 milliseconds, 16 milliseconds, 17 milliseconds roughly, right? And so I know that a single frame is taking 16.6667 milliseconds, right? If I divide all these guys, if I take 1 second, so this is 1,000 milliseconds. So if I take 1,000 milliseconds, divide it by this, right, I get my frame rate, which is 60 FPS, right? So that's kind of easy. That's kind of the easiest, or that's how you kind of calculate your frame rate, right? It's not hard, it's pretty easy. So 1000 divided by that. Now here's the thing, something you wanna make sure you do is right now I'm dividing an integer by a float. And so what that will do is it's gonna remove any the output will be an integer, not a float. You can see here my output is I lied because I don't know what I'm talking about. Apparently that's only in C#. Apparently it doesn't matter. It's okay. It happens to the best of us. Yeah, so I'm rendering it 2 frames, 58 frames. That's fine. So what I was gonna say is, if you take an integer, divide by a float, you're gonna get a the output is gonna be an integer. But apparently that's only a C# thing. So there you go. Anyway, so what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna render this. I'm gonna say FPS is this, and then I'm gonna say that frame time is delta time, right? So that's just a bunch of debug information that we kind of want to see on the screen, which would be helpful. Thanks for your motivation, your knowledge sharing. I'm really glad you're enjoying it. I'm really glad you're enjoying it. All right, here we go. We can kind of verify this. So you can see here my frame rate in fraps is 60, and if I stop this, you'll see I'm getting also 60 frames, 62.2, 16 ms, 58.82. It's, you know, it's fluctuating up and down, but it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. Wondering why it's fluctuating so much. Why is it not that steady and accurate? Not quite sure. Does this return a double? It's an int32. No. It's an int32. If I do a double, will it be a little bit more precise? 2.0. I don't know, we'll see. Double? Nope, same thing. Alright, well, I guess not. Either way, doesn't matter. Usually, delta time is double anyways, just to hold more data. Just keep it a double. And this is my frame rate. So I'm literally rendering my frame rate right now. All right, this is all fine and good, but displaying this on text, like in the console this way, is unreadable, and it's unreadable, period. So instead of displaying in the console, I would like to display it in the in the game itself, right? All right, so let's do that. To do that, I have no idea how to do that. I forgot. So I'm pretty sure SFML has a section for that. Hold on, let me test my memory, because, you know, see if my memory is good enough. To render text on the screen, we're gonna make a class for it at some point, or today. We're gonna clean up the code, but just gonna do everything in main for now. So SF, I need the text. All right, call it frame rate text, and I also need the font. Called font, right? And if I remember correctly, you render the text. So window.draw framerate text. Yeah. And then you can say text dot character, set character, no. Text dot something. Set string. So you can do set string. I'll explain this in more detail. Just give me a second. Let me just make sure actually not talking out of my ass. So I believe I can just do this. No, this has all be in one string. Whatever, I'm just gonna say print hello for now. Okay, so I'm setting the string. I'm setting the text string to hello every single frame. I'll go into more detail on that in a second. I have my font. I need to load my font. So my text needs a font. So we need to load the font. I'll just do it in the load section here for now. Just do it at the very top. And so font.load from file. That needs the font location. And so we'll do assets slash fonts slash Arial.ttf. Is it Arial? I don't know. Fonts. Arial A-R-I. Yep. All right. So we need to load up my font, and I need to check if the font has been loaded. I just say std cout. Ooh, loaded. And then std.ml. All right. Else std cout. Oh no. std.ml. All right, so we got that. What we need is we need the font in our assets. So I'm loading a font, right? And so the font need to exist in our assets folder. And again, I'll go into more detail on all of this. So assets is capital A. We need to fix that. Assets, and then oh, I need to create a folder called fonts. So fonts is capital F. And then okay, so okay, let me explain this and go through it. Seeing that I remember. And if you want to look at the documentation, you can. If you go to SFML, text and fonts, yeah, it's literally what I did, which is kind of cool. All right, let me go through this and I can explain it. So previously we talked about textures and sprites, right? And we said that a texture is just a bunch of pixels, right? It's just some data, color data, that you use and that just holds color data, right? You cannot draw a texture directly. However, you can draw a sprite, right? A sprite contains your position, rotation, scaling. It contains the data of your texture, contains a bunch of other things, right? And so whenever we want to draw something, we do window.draw our sprite. We don't draw our texture. And the same exact concept applies to fonts and text. So for text, you draw your text on the screen. So your text is the equivalent of your sprite. Your fonts are your equivalent of your textures. So you cannot draw a font directly onto the screen. What you draw is the actual text object. And the text object needs the font to, well, display characters on the screen. So that's kind of the idea here. Now I'll go through this step by step. Is TTF the only format accepted by SFML? No, I'm sure they use. I'm pretty sure they accept different formats like OTF. I could be wrong on that, so let's just double check and check the documentation. All right, note that SFML won't load your system font automatically. All right, so like I said, we need to actually copy the font into our assets folder. Yeah. Can we talk about formats? Um, Honestly, I don't know. But I'm pretty sure like they have to load something other than ETF, right? Can I go to the SF font thing? No, so this is the documentation. And if I go to load from file, all right, here we go. The supported font format are type, true type, type 1, CCF, open type, SFNTX11PC, whatever. Yeah, so they support a bunch of formats, which is good. What are the extensions though? What is OTF? OTF. What is that? Formats. Google, why are you trying to track my location? It's open type. Yeah. So it supports a bunch of them, including open type. So yeah, that's great. Woo. So there you go. I'm just gonna load the TTF file because on my system, I'm using TTF, right? All right. So here's the thing. We need our font to be saved in our assets folder, right? So how do you get a font? Well, you can either download it or you can copy one from your system. So if I press start and I tap fonts, you can see in Windows, there's a folder that includes all of your fonts. Every single font that's installed on your system is in here. And so Arial is pretty popular. It should exist in every single system. So what I can do is double click on Arial, and then I'm gonna copy Arial regular. Right click, copy, and then paste it in my SFML assets fonts, and just paste it here. Right, so paste, and here's my font, arial.ttf. Oops, I didn't mean to open it. So now if I want to load this thing, I just do arial.ttf small a for Arial. So for my font, I basically say, hey, try to load the font from a file, and this is the location of my font, and this is the font name with the extension. If it works, if you manage to load it, and this function returns a boolean, so it's either true or false. If it loads it, it's gonna return true, which is great. It says, woo, loaded. If it's false, it's gonna be like, oh no, it didn't work. Oh, right? All right. So once we load our font, our text, our frame rate text, I would like to set. So there's a function called set font, right? So frame rate text has a function called set font, which will take an input of a font, right? And I would like you to kind of notice on this. Damn it, I think I remember saying that if I zoom in, you guys, this won't zoom in for you. Damn it, that sucks. All right, well, try to see this. I don't know if you can. Can I just copy this? No. Highly recommend watching this on a big screen so you can see the small text. But if you look here, it says the input for set font is a reference font. So we're passing the font by reference. We're not copying the font. We're passing it by reference, which is great. So yeah. All right, so we're doing that. So same thing with sprites. Whenever we set the sprite texture, let's go to player. Here, whenever I say sprite.setTexture, notice the set texture, we're passing the texture by reference. We're not copying the texture because that would be really, really bad. Doing a copy of a big texture, like a 3, 5, 6 MB texture being copied, that's really bad. So instead of copying the texture, we're passing it by reference, right? Which is good. All right, so we loaded the font, we've set the font, right? All good and dandy. And now we're just drawing, we're saying, hey, window.draw the frame rate font. And I'm setting the string. So we've set the font, we've set the font of the text. So now the text has the font, right? What we need to do next is set, well, the text. What is the text is gonna say? And so you can do that by using the function setString. And setString will take a reference, again, string. So there's no copy. It'll just take the string as is. And so it'll take this, and this is what's going to be rendered on the screen. So if I press play, hopefully at the top left corner of my screen, it should say hello. Which it does, look at that. And it's behind SFML. So, sorry, it's behind the fraps. So there you go, we have text. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that easy. All right, so we have text. Now my objective is to actually render this entire thing rather than hello. So what I can do is I can do a std string frame rate text equal to. Can I just do all of this? Can I just do that? No. Can I do plus? Can I surround all of this? And kind of be like, hey, ooh, there's a function. There's a function for this. Hold on, let me remember. It is std s to I or s to f. Yes, s to f. Okay, I can open this. I can do that. Will that work? No. F? No. Argument types are double. Kind of annoying me. S to F. It takes a string. Oh, this returns a float. What am I doing? No, it should be right. String. No. Oh, what am I doing? Yeah, no, never mind. F to S? No. I want to convert this to a string. Okay, for those who don't know, std s to f is a. Hold on 1 second. Sorry, I had to violently sneeze. Anyways, s to f is a function in the standard library that takes a string and converts it to a float. So for example, if I pass a string and it's like 1000.0f, right? That string will be converted to a float. And I was trying to use that thinking that I can pass a float and it'll give me a string. But it literally says s to f, which is string to float. We also have the function std s to I, which is string to integer. There's a function that converts this to a string. I don't fucking remember what it's called. So documentation help. Convert a float to a string C++. Come on. Give me it. String? No. str. I want. Oh, to string. I'm such a fucking idiot. It's called a string. Forgot. Yeah, baby. Alright, now. And this has to be to string too. Right? And this has to be at some, like, at this point, it has to be on multiple lines just because, like, it's taking a lot of space. Alright, and just put this over here. Just all the way like that. Okay. So, what we're doing now, I have a function that's called std to string. So we'll take a number, any number you like, it will convert it to a string. And so what I'm doing is I made a string called framerate text. The string will contain FPS plus whatever this value is, this division, plus the frame time, which is the delta time. So we're basically no, hold on, let me try this. Concatenating. Jesus Christ, that's a hard word to pronounce. Concatenating. We're concatenating. Fuck yes. These bunch of strings together, and concatenating means we're just adding a bunch of strings together, or adding a bunch of things together. For those who Google help, thank you. Concatenating. That's spelled correctly? Fuck no. Hold on, you can't hear this. Let me do this.
Concatenate.
Yes. Link things together in certain series or chain. So there you go. See, I'm smart. I know things. Anyways, so I'm just gonna render this. What's the problem now? Don't make me hit you. What's your issue? STD. Oh, this takes do I have to do sister? Sister. I not sister. C string. What do you want? Hold on. What's your problem? Has no member set string. What? Oh, I call this frame rate. Okay, so here's the problem. I have a variable that's called frame rate text, which is of type text, and I'm using the same variable name to create a string, and so Visual Studio is kind of confused, or not Visual Studio, the compiler. So I can't have the two variables with the same name. So I'm just gonna call this frame rate string. Yeah. I pass my string here. Alright. So I'm passing the string to my text, which my text is gonna render on the screen. So now, with the magic of programming, hell yeah, we have a frame rate, boys. Boys and girls. Well, mostly boys, I think. But here we go. It's really jittery. Like, really jittery. And it's hard to tell what the number is. I have no idea how to slow it down. What I can do, hmm, that's very jittery. I can't think of a solution, and I can't be bothered to think of a solution. I guess it's close enough. Like you can see 16, 17, 16, 17, over and over and over, which is fine. I'm gonna keep this debug information, or actually, I'm gonna remove it from here because why is it there twice? So I'm gonna comment this line out. And so I should be able to see my frame rate and my frame time over here, which is good. It's good enough, you know? And it's a floating point, so it's a little bit precise, I guess. But there you go. So what I could do, okay, hold on. What I can do is, if I cast this to integer, and I didn't talk about casting. We'll talk about casting in a second, or literally right now, if this works. Alright, so yeah, it works. I eliminate all the zeros. It's set integer, not floats anymore. So, but it's moving way too fast. I don't like that. Whatever. Okay, let me explain casting for those who don't know, right? Because this is kind of introduction to C++ and everything, and programming in general. So here's the thing, all right? Here's the thing. This 1000 this entire thing is a floating point, right? This is a floating point number. Delta time is currently, now, it's a floating point. So I'm taking a floating point and I'm dividing it by another floating point, right? And so what I can do is I can do float. So this is R for result. So result. So what I'm doing is taking 1000, dividing it by delta time, and that data will be stored in result. And so what I'm doing here is using the std2string function to convert this floating point to a string, right? And so if I press play, you'll see that it's going to render our floating point with a bunch of zeros. So you can see it's rendering 62.005, whatever number you see right now, right? Can I just pause the game? Oh, I can pause the game. I think if I do this, no, cool, doesn't pause the game. But you can see there's a bunch of floating points, right? It's not a full number. It's not an integer. It's a bunch of floats. Here's the cool thing, though. What I can do is say, hey, listen, this is a float. This is a float. Divide those two together and give me back a float. This is great. But when I render this, right, on the screen, I would like you to render it as an integer. Meaning, well, get rid of everything after the decimal point, right? So if I have a number that is 16.666667, right? Let's do like that. And I cast this to an integer, meaning I convert this floating point to an integer. What this basically does, well, what this literally does, it's gonna remove everything after the decimal, and we're gonna be stuck with 16. So we're losing data essentially. And you can think of it as this way. You can think of it like this. Let me go to the correct location. And I believe I was doing this here. Yeah, let's go here. You can think of it like this, right? This is a box that's currently holds a floating point. So float. And inside this box, there's 16.667, like that. When I take this box, this is my variable. When I take this box and cast it to an integer, like that, or like this, what essentially I'm doing is I am cutting this box, deleting all this data, and making this box much smaller, right? That's literally what I'm doing. I'm taking a float, I'm converting to an integer, and now this box in memory, my box in memory can only hold an integer. Now, something I need to talk about is how big a float is. So float is 4 bytes. We'll talk about this in a lot more details later on, but just right now, real quick. An integer, a float is 4 bytes, and also a float is 4 bytes, and an integer is also 4 bytes, right? So in terms of size and memory, they occupy the same size. But whenever I cast a float to an integer, I'm just losing all the data after the decimal point is lost. It's literally deleted, right? So that's casting. Casting is the idea of converting one data type to another. And so I can do that. So this is my result. This is my result variable. It's a floating point. And so I want to cast it to an integer. So to cast something to a different type, you just do brackets before the type. So this is the result. It's a float. I do brackets before it, and I type what I want to cast it to. So this is a float, and I want to cast it to an integer. If I would like to cast this to a double, just do double. If I want to cast this to a string, obviously it's not going to work, but let's just say this works, so you can cast it to a string, right? You can't cast it to a string. You can only cast things, either pointers, which we haven't covered yet, we didn't talk about. You can only cast pointers and basic data types like float, integers, and doubles. Can you cast booleans? You can cast booleans! Woo! I mean, technically a boolean is 1 and 0, right? True is 1, false is 0. So a boolean is technically an integer, but who's counting? All right. So okay, so by casting this result, right, a floating point, by casting it to an integer, essentially what I'm doing here, as you can see now, I lose that precision. It's now a full number, not a number with a bunch of decimal points, right? So that exists, which is kind of cool. So I can also cast this to an integer. So now both of them are just integers, like so. Cool. So there's that. I should put this in a class because this looks ugly and disgusting. I can put this. I can make a class here. Don't do this. I can make a class, and I can call this class frame rate. Horrible class name. Stats, state, frame rate. Let's do frame rate. Can't think of a better class name. This will do. Alright, this class, all it's gonna have is the data for my frame rate stuff. So rather than just putting everything in main, we'll just organize it and move everything there. So what I need my font and my text. So we'll have a private section. These guys over there. We'll have a public section for void update. Just our general functions, which are initialize, update, load, and what have you, right? And render, obviously. So we have that. One thing I also didn't explain yet is pragma once. I didn't talk about this at all. I'll talk about it at some point when we actually face an issue with it, and I'll mention what it does and why it's important. Don't worry about that too much now. So we'll take this code. Oh, we need to make these guys. So let's do that. Who is texting me at 12 a.m. in the morning? Alright, so we have all these functions which exist, which is kind of cool. All the loading stuff is gonna be here. Let's actually write an actual proper message here. I'll just say Arial.ttf font in assets has been loaded successfully. And that's exactly how you spell successfully, and if anyone tells you otherwise, they're wrong. There's no K, first of all. Google, check me. Thank you, Google. You are precious. Alright, okay, so the font in asset has been loaded successfully. We're just gonna copy the same error message, and we're gonna say failed to load Arial.ttf font in assets successfully. Failed to load Arial.ttf font in assets successfully. Yeah. I remember it was on Reddit the other day, in the programming horror subreddit, and there was a meme there that says error failed successfully. Which was kind of cool. How big is RPG supposed to become? Honestly, I don't know. I'm kind of winging it. I'm kind of doing it as I go along. I'm just setting up the basic framework, like the editor of the game and the basic mechanics of the game, and getting things up and running. What I'm gonna After I get all that up and running, I'm going to write a GDD, game design document, and I'll do all this on stream. So my entire idea, I have a big vision for this, and we'll see how this is gonna how long this is gonna take. This series, the direction I want to take this series is, I want to take someone from a complete beginner who doesn't know how to turn on a computer. Hopefully, you know how to do that, but who doesn't know how to turn on a computer, to a beginner programmer, to a decent programmer, to having a game idea, writing a game idea in a document, doing market analysis, programming the game, programming the tools of the game, add modding support, adding multiplayer, making a website, and if we have enough time, make an app, a companion app for the game. So you know how like Final Fantasy, they have their companion app for Android and iOS. So we'll make an app in React Native. We'll build a backend server. We'll build a database, a login system, matchmaking system, until release. So it's a whole kind of, so essentially I want to hit multiple learning outcomes or multiple things with this project. Marketing research, business plan, game design document, technical design document, publishing things on Steam or self-publishing, making an app on iOS and Android for the game, doing backend stuff, server stuff, matchmaking, all that, right? So a complete whole product. And so we'll see. I mean, it's kind of early on. I don't think I will hit all of this in a year. So my plan is to do this all in a year. Not this whole thing. My plan is to make a 2D RPG game in a year. Most likely, the multiplayer part and the app part and the website part, all of that will not be done in a year. So I might have to extend that. But the RPG game, I'm gonna lower the scope as much as possible to be able to have a decently kind of fun game. Nothing too complex. I don't want to go crazy. Decently fun, but hit all of these kind of learning points and technologies that any programmer they need to know in order to find a job in the industry, right? That's kind of my goal. Uh, okay, serious. That's fucking yeah. So let's see. Let's hope it all works out. And when I'm done with this, I will we'll build a when I build with this when I'm done with this series, I don't know. We'll do something else. We'll see what we'll do next. But baby steps. Let's just let's get this off the ground first and see what happens. Big dreams. But let's see. Let's see how long it'll take. Anyways, that's kind of the idea. Going back to this, I need SFML graphics, so I need that. Initialize, load, update, draw. We got all these. These lovely guys are private. We need to include IOStream. IOStream. The thing is, there's a lot of things like there are a lot of things behind the scenes that we have to do. Like we have to do a star algorithm for pathfinding. We have to do spatial partitioning for optimization, for optimizing the world, and for collision detection. There's so many algorithms that we have to implement before we have like a decent product, a decent 2D game, right? So this might take a while. We'll see. But yeah, I would like to hit all the points and everything in a year. Depending on how fast I can frame, I can not frame, stream, and how fast I can do this. Anyways, so I'm calculating my delta time here. I need to cut all this code. So this is the code for my FPS, and I really don't need to. Well, yeah, I'll just cut the code for my FPS. The delta time is over here, so all of this will be moved to the frame rate part. Delta time will always stay here, not gonna change. That has to be an update. I already have the delta time passed as a variable here. That's my frame rate. I'm casting my frame rate, my FPS to an integer. We can do this here like that. We have delta time here. I'm setting the string twice. I need to do that. Yeah, there you go. Now I need to actually render this. So going back here, clean this up a little bit. Cut this line and do window render. Alright, cool. That's my entire class. Pretty simple. Not that difficult. All it does, it literally loads a font, calculates my FPS, puts it all in a string. And actually I can just put all this in here, like, should I put it all like that? I could. I don't need that extra variable. All in one line. Kind of cleaner, to be honest with you. Yeah, this looks nice. So frame rate, calculate it, render it, or set it, then render it. Yeah. Let's call this class now. So let's include at the top here. Include frame rate. We'll do frame rate over here. Create an object out of frame rate. Initialize frame rate. Load frame rate. Update frame rate. With delta time as always, and render frame rate. If I if I render the frame rate first, that means the skeleton and the player will be on top of the frame rate. So I'm gonna render the frame rate at the very end. So always the frame rate text is gonna be on top, which is cool. All right, so there you go. Frame rate, we have frame rate, we have frame time, we're shooting bullets, everything is peachy. And if I shoot enough bullets, my frame rate should drop. It's gonna take a while to drop. So let me change the lock from 60 to 360. So lock our frame rate to 360. And whoa, that is, man, this is unreadable. This is 500. It goes from 500 to 360, like super fast. This is really unreadable. All right, I need to find a solution for this. This is bad. The only solution that I can think of is rather than doing this every single frame, I will do it. I will set the text, instead of setting it every frame, I'll set it every 1 second. And I can do that easily. So what I can do, this is what I can do. This is awesome. All right, so here's the thing. We want a timer, right? The idea here is rather than rendering the frame rate every single frame, which will result in this jittery kind of fast change, and I can't read the number because it's changing so fast. Instead of doing that every frame, I will do it once every second. So now the question, how can I find out how long it has passed? Like how long it's been since the game started, right? I need to get that number. Well, we can do it in two ways. One, we can create a clock in our frame rate, and we can calculate the time, and when it reaches 1 second, I restart the clock. I can do that. That's option number one. Option number two is I really don't need a clock because I already have delta time. And I know that delta time is the time it takes to render a single frame. So what I can do is do a cool, neat little trick. So I'm going to make a float, a variable, call it timer. I don't know if I mentioned this, but it is extremely important. When you create a variable, you need to initialize it to 0. Otherwise, the value of this variable will be whatever garbage value in memory at the time. So for example, and again, I don't remember if I mentioned this. I'll mention it either way. Let's say this is memory over here. And there's a bunch of garbage values from like a previous application. -5, 8, 1000, double quotes, hello. Right? And when I create a variable called timer, and let's say the operating system decides to make this memory cell equal to timer, so this is timer over here. Now timer has the value of hello, or let's say it has the value of -5. Let's not do hello, not overcomplicate things. The value -5. So whenever if you try to do math, if I increase the timer by 1, now it's -4. But I expected timer to be 0. So again, always, whenever you create a variable, for the love of God, set the value to 0 at all times. Do not forget to set it to 0. Now, I can set it to 0 in initialize. I can set it to 0 in load. Those are all valid places. But the place that I usually like to set my variables to 0, and I can set it here. I can say timer equals 0. This is also valid. But where I usually like to set my variables is in the constructor. Now here's the thing. We talked about constructors extremely briefly before. We said that here when I create the window object, so I have a window object of type render window, I am calling the constructor function of window. And I said that the constructor function is just a function that is called whenever you create an object. So frame rate has a constructor that is called when I create frame rate. Player has a constructor when it's called when I create player. Skeleton has a constructor that is called when I create the skeleton object. So all of these have constructors. Now here's the thing. we never defined a constructor. We didn't actually mention, or we didn't create a constructor. If you did not create a constructor, by default, C++ will create one for you. It's invisible, it's not in your code, but C++ does it for you. You can explicitly mention that you want to create a constructor, right? Which we will do here, because I want to set my timer to 0 in the constructor, meaning the second I create this object, frame rate, timer will be set to 0 in the constructor, right? And that's why constructors are kind of useful, and they're awesome, because when you create an object, the constructor is automatically called, whether you put brackets or not, right? It's automatically called, and it runs whatever code you want it to run when you create an object. So let's create a constructor. How do you create a constructor? Well, first of all, I need to make a constructor. I need to make it public, because if you make it private, you will not be able to create an object like this, right? So I'm going to make it private just to demonstrate my point, and then I'll make it public. Now, here are the rules of a constructor. A constructor does not have a return type, meaning that it does not return anything. You cannot say void, you cannot make it return void or int or float or anything, right? It doesn't return anything. That's rule number 1. A constructor, the name of the constructor has to match exactly the class name. So if my class name is framerate, my constructor name has to be framerate. Those are the 2 rules. That's it. So I'm going to make it private just to demonstrate my point. So I'm going to make a constructor called framerate, and it's a function with brackets and a semicolon, right? So this is my constructor, right? I didn't implement it yet, so let's implement it. So if I right click here, or if I just go here, just do framerate colon framerate. So here's what I'm essentially doing. I'm saying that there's a function called framerate, which is my constructor, inside my framerate class. Now there's an error here because it's, don't worry about that. Well, there's a warning. The warning says framerate timer is uninitialized. Always initialize a member variable. A member variable is this. This is a member variable. So it's basically telling me, hey, dude, you forgot to set the timer to 0, or you forgot to initialize it, right? So that's a nice warning that Visual Studio gives you. All right, so how do you initialize it to 0? Well, you can do this. Timer equal to 0. So what I've essentially done here is I've created a constructor. This constructor is private. This constructor will be called whenever you create an object, like in here. So when I create the object framerate, this constructor will be called, which is a function, and will set the timer to 0, or will execute whatever code you want me to execute in the constructor. Let me remove the timer from initialize, just do it in constructor. Now, here is the problem. If you look at the constructor, there's an error, right? And it says framerate is inaccessible. Reason it's inaccessible because I set it to private. And if it's private, I can't create an object, which is not great. So I'll move it to the public area, right? Like that. And now the error should disappear, like so. Right. So now I've explicitly created a constructor which has the same name as my class. It has no return type, so it doesn't say void, doesn't say int. There's no return type. You just type framerate brackets, and that's my constructor. And this works perfectly great. Now, when I call framerate, this line will call this function. I'll execute whatever code in my constructor. Now, one last thing. I usually don't like to initialize my functions or my variables like this. I usually don't like to say timer equal to 0 in the constructor. And sometimes you are forced to do it the way I'm going to show you now. Like sometimes doing this is not good enough. Sometimes you have to do it the way I'm going to show you now. And the way I'm going to show you now is called constructor list initialization, if I'm not mistaken. So let me Google it, make sure. Constructor list initialization, C++. Constructor member list initialization. Yeah, it's member list initialization. So what this basically means is that when the constructor is called, it will, so I'll put a colon, and I can put this all in one line. I can say timer 0. So let's look at this. This basically says, when the constructor is called, please initialize my timer variable to the value 0. So those two brackets, as if you're saying equal to 0, right? This is the kind of equivalent, but rather than saying 0, we put brackets like that, right? And this is called list. This is called member list initialization. Now this is sometimes you are forced to do it that way, and we will see a case when we are forced to do it that way, right? I'll show you a case when that happens. But for now, we're gonna stick with this convention. Anytime I want to set a variable to 0 or a certain value, I'll always do it this way. Colon after the constructor, and I set the timer or whatever variable I want to a specific value. Now, I usually like to put this on on next line, right, on a new line. So colon, and then put all my things, everything I want to list initialize here to 0, put them here, right? So that's how kind of what we're gonna do moving forward, right? Create the constructor, list initialize it to whatever value I want. In this case, the timer to 0. Now here's the thing. I made the constructor. So the constructor is called whenever you create an object. So this constructor is called at line 17 when I create the frame rate object. There's one more function that's called the destructor. And the destructor sounds very similar to the constructor, right? Constructor is called when you create an object. A destructor is called when you destroy an object. So I'm going to create a destructor. We don't need it, right? We don't need it at all. And again, Visual Studio or C++ is going to create one for you if you don't create one. But we're going to moving forward, we're going to explicitly mention, or we're going to explicitly create all of our constructor and destructors, right? Just to get used to it. So to create a destructor, what you do is you do this. Oops, not this. Hold on. That? No, hold on. I'll figure it out, I promise. There you go. All right, this is the tilde key, right? And the tilde is on your escape key. So if you press Shift Escape, you should be able to get a tilde key. And so the destructor starts with a tilde, and the name of your destructor is the same name as your class. So the only difference between the constructor and destructor in terms of naming is the tilde. The tilde is the destructor. And so the destructor is called when the object is destroyed, which is kind of cool. So I'm gonna right click here, create a definition. So it should create my destructor. Destructor? Hello? Where did it create my destructor? What did I do? I pressed stuff. I sometimes press stuff without knowing what I pressed. Okay, it created something somewhere. Okay. Hello? Okay, I guess I'll create it manually. What am I doing? Jeez. Okay. All right, Visual Studio, you are going crazy right now. Can we not pin those? Thank you. Okay. I don't. Can I delete this? Add it again. All right, it created this. Okay, there you go. So right click, quick action, create definition of this in framerate.cpp. Yes, this is what I want. Can you please do it? Created successfully. Oh, there it is. Okay, cool. So you can see now the destructor is called after initialize for whatever reason. So usually, by convention, the constructor and the destructor are at the top of your classes or the top of your CPP file. Right? So the convention is both of them are public. They have to be public, obviously. Otherwise, you cannot create an object and destroy an object. They both have to be public. They both have to have the same name as the class. The constructor, the destructor has a tilde. The constructor doesn't, and they don't return any data type, right? And so the convention that I like to go with is public constructor, destructor, space, all your function names. And the constructor and destructor are at the very top of your CPP class. For our destructor, we're not gonna write anything in it because there's nothing to destroy, like there's nothing to clean up here. So we'll just leave it empty. But now the question is, when will the destructor be called? So I'm gonna show you a few things that are pretty cool, right? I'm gonna try to show you when these two functions are gonna be called and kind of prove them to you, right? So in the constructor, I'm gonna say std cout I have been created, I shall live, or something like that. I don't know. I was watching Lord of the Rings. Okay, so here's the thing. I watch the Lord of the Rings at least once a year. Like it's a tradition. It has to be done. Otherwise, Mordor wins. All right, evil will prevail. So I have to watch. It's just to keep the world safe. Okay, I have to watch Lord of the Rings. I'm doing a service for the world. So you're welcome, universe. So I watch Lord of the Rings once a year. I make sure to do that, and I also make sure to watch Harry Potter, the entire Harry Potter series, once a year, right? And so I was watching it. I was watching Lord of the Rings yesterday, all three movies. Well, it's been 3 days. Every day a movie because every movie is fucking 3 hours. So I usually watch them or put them in the background while I'm doing work or working. And so, kind of, that's where the I shall live kind of, came on. Anywho, I am going to be, or I am destroyed. Sadness fills the air. Why not? As you can see, very poetic. Very poetic. Now, spell check me. Did I spell destroy right? You know what? I think destroy is spelled this way. Destroyed. With a Y, not an I? Yeah, it is with a Y. See? See? I'm smart, but I flipped the R and O because I was tapping it too fast. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's all good. It's all good. It's all good in the hood. You know the hood? It's all good there. Okay. So now, when the constructor is created, it's gonna say I've been created. When the destructor is gonna be called, it's gonna say I'm destroyed. Alright, so let's see when this happens. Now the constructor, we know that the constructor is called on line 17 for my frame rate, right? Because this is the frame rate class, right? So my constructors are gonna be called here. So if I press play, I'm gonna put a breakpoint here. I'm gonna put a breakpoint on this line. And again, I didn't talk in too much detail about breakpoints. We'll talk about them later on. But I'll have a section in detail. But essentially, put a breakpoint. The program is halted on this line. It's stopped on this line. So what I can do is, if you look at here, it didn't print anything, right? So I'm gonna step into this function. So there's this button here that says step into, or you can press F11. So I'm gonna step into the constructor. And you can see we jumped into the constructor. I'm gonna execute. Okay, I don't know what I did. The fuck did I do? Excuse me, Visual Studio? Question mark? Step into, then step over, step over, step over. Okay, there you go, Visual Studio. Good job. So now you can see that says I have been created, I shall live. So this is the constructor, right? It's created on this line. Okay, when will the destructor be called? Well, the destructor will be called at the end of the scope, right? Where's my scope? Where does my scope end? Well, my scope right now, the highest scope that exists is my main function. And my main function scope is at line 9. So where does the scope of my main function ends? Well, if you follow the dotted line, it ends at return 0. And we can reach return 0 if we exit the main loop, the main game loop, which means if I press X on my program, if I press X on my program, right, on my RPG game, it should print I have been destroyed, right? So I'm gonna press continue, right? This is my game. So it says, I have been created, I shall live, loaded TFT, player texture, all that. Now the second I'm going to press X, the destructor will be called. Alright, so press X. You can see I am destroyed, sadness fills the air. Right? Now here is the thing. You can create your own scope if you want to. So I'm gonna create a scope here. I'm gonna do that. Now this is really bad because I essentially created this object in this scope, meaning that this object only exists in this scope, which means that I cannot call framerate.initialize because C++ doesn't know where framerate because I've only created it in this scope, which means it only exists in the scope. So I have to comment these lines out for now. Right? Just all the framerate stuff. And so I'm going to put a breakpoint here and I'm going to attach. So my objective is here to show you that the constructor will be called here and the destructor will be called at line 20. And just to prove this to you, I'm going to prove it as stdc out hi stdmdel, and in here I'm going to say that. Okay, so I'm going to attach to Unity. I'm going to attach to Visual Studio. Okay, I'm going to step into constructor is going to be called, right? I've been created, I shall live, right? You can see I've been created, I shall live, right? I'm going to step to the next line. So the next line is line 19. This should render high, which it did. And now I'm on this curly brace. I haven't executed this curly brace, but I'm on it. And so if I just do this, right? Just with this side by side, I'm going to execute my curly brace right now. Step. Now you can see we jumped into the destructor immediately because now at the end of the scope, we have to destroy all game objects at the end of the scope. So the destructor is called. Visual Studio goes crazy. It's really important. And once we're done with the end of the scope, now we print that. Right? So you can make your own scopes like this. This scope is kind of useless. It's pointless. There's no reason to have it there other than, hey, I'm showing it to you. Now, the other reason or the other time where you can have an actual scope that's useful is if you have an if statement. An if statement has a scope. It has it starts at some point and it ends at some point. So for example, I can say if 13 equal 13. And 13 is, or 13 does equal 13, right? And so this if statement will execute. This if statement will execute, meaning that I'm going to create my object, frame rate. I'm going to call the constructor. I'm going to say hi. And at the end of the scope of my if statement, it's going to print that. Right? And I can prove that to you again by putting a breakpoint here. Right? Expanding this a little bit. Step into this. It's going to execute. Step into this. It says I've been created, right? That's done. Step says hi. Now I am at the end of the scope of my if statement, which means this will be destroyed. Step into. I jumped into the frame rate now. Step over and I'm dead. Right? So those are constructor and destructors. They're very important concepts. They're very useful in C++. And they are used. And now you know when a constructor is called and when a destructor is called. Now, The other useful thing about constructors is you can pass arguments to the constructor, right? So for example, what I can do is I can pass an argument to frame rate. I don't need to do it. Like actually I don't need to do it in this context, but as an example, I'm gonna show it to you anyways. Let's say my frame rate constructor requires, I don't fucking know. What does it require? What does a frame rate require? Sure, let's say std string window name. For whatever goddamn reason we need that, right? So my frame rate requires a window name. So let me copy that, paste it also in the constructor here. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna do std cout my window name, right? And so now, if I go to the main.cpp, you'll see an error at frame rate, right? You can see there's an error here because it says no default constructor exists for class frame rate, meaning there is no constructor that takes no arguments. You, Mr. Human, are asking me to initialize the constructor function, to call the constructor function. However, with all of your wisdom and genius, you did not create a constructor that takes no argument. Your constructor requires an argument. So please get your shit together and provide an argument for me or to me. Right? So now frame rate, I need to open brackets and I need to say window name is none of your goddamn business. And that's how you spell business. That's exactly how you spell business. And if anyone tells you otherwise, they're wrong. All right, so if I press play, oh, breakpoint, breakpoint, breakpoint. Whew, I did it in time. Look at me. All right, now, if I step into this, it's going to print I have been created. Do this, right? Step over, I've been created. Now window name, if I hover over window name, you can see that the value is window name is none of your goddamn business. So print that, right? That's now passed as an argument. And this will get destroyed and dead, right? So just like how the window object has a constructor which takes 1, 2, 3, 4. It takes 4 arguments. The constructor for the window takes 4 arguments. Our frame rate constructor takes 1 argument, and we have to provide it. Now, here's the thing. And you notice here that I need the brackets, right? Because it's a normal function. Now, here's the thing. If the constructor does not need any argument, right, like that, this constructor is now not taking any arguments, right? So I'm going to delete the arguments. You are not allowed to put 2 brackets. Motherfuck. What? Okay, I guess you are. Is this actually going to work? I swear God, C++, you need to get your shit together because this was not possible a few years ago. Okay, so they must have updated C++ and now it's possible, but whatever. You know what? This is the last time you embarrass me, okay? Usually, in the olden days of the wild, wild west, you couldn't put 2 brackets for a constructor that takes no argument. You'd have to do this, right? But apparently, now you can. Whoop-de fucking do. So, there you go. It's whatever. So that's it. That's all I want to talk about constructor and destructors. There's a lot more to talk about. Like there's a shit ton more to talk about. We'll talk about more later on. But that's kind of the idea. We're gonna use constructors and destructors a lot. So I'm just going to call frame rate. I'm going to do initialize, load, update, and draw, right? Get all that covered. I have my functions, my constructors, frame rate here. I don't need to say anything in a constructor. Just keep them empty. The entire point of my constructor is just to initialize my timer to 0. Right? That's the entire point that I wanted to make, right? We've been working all this time to only print this once per second, and we jumped into a whole different thing. Anyway, so if I press play, everything should work, right? And here my frame rate, it's doing its thing, it's loading crazy. Okay, so going back to my previous point, and I said that the idea here, the goal, is to print my frame rate every 1 second, not every frame, because we're doing it every frame, and you can see the text is changing so fast that it's unreadable. So we want to do it only once per frame, and you can do it in 2 ways. You can either make a clock, and you can start the clock and check if it reaches 1 second, and if it did, you reset the clock. You can do that. The other way you can do it is by delta time. Now we already know how long it takes to render a single frame, which is around 16.66 milliseconds in our case if we're running at 60 frames per second, which we are not, but it doesn't matter. So I already know what my delta time is. I already know how long it takes to render a single frame. So what I can do here, and this is cool, is I can make a float timer, and I set it to 0. And in update, I can do this. Timer plus equal to delta time. So I'm going to increment my timer. Every frame, I'm going to increase the value of my timer by delta time. And then what I'm going to do is check if the timer is bigger or equal to 1000 milliseconds, right, or 1 second, then I would like to calculate my frame rate. I would like to set my frame rate and then reset the timer back to 0. And so this is what's going to happen. Timer is set to 0. The first frame, timer is 0. I'm going to increment the timer by delta time. And let's assume, for the sake of argument, delta time is 16.66667 milliseconds, which is around, or which not around, it is 60 frames per second, right? So every frame, or this is the first frame, right? Timer is 0. I increment the timer by 16.667 milliseconds. So let's get my calculator here. Timer is 0. I'm going to add 16.667 milliseconds, right? I'm going to press equal. Now the value of my timer is 16.667 milliseconds. I check, is the timer bigger than 1000? No, 16.6667 is not bigger than 1000. So I skip this line of code. Next frame comes along. I add another 16.666 milliseconds to my timer. So I'm going to press equal again. Now my value is 33. Check. Is 33 bigger than 1000? No. Skip this. Do it again. And 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 again. Again. And again. And again. I have to do this 60 times. Because 16.666 milliseconds happens 60 times in 1 second. So I have to do this 60 times. You have to sing to the song. You have to sync to the song. There you go. So now, timer is 1000.002 milliseconds. Is 1000.002 bigger or equal to 1000? Yes, it is. Calculate my frame rate, display my frame rate, and reset timer back to 0. Okay, timer is back to 0. Next frame, 0 plus 16.66 milliseconds, and the same thing goes over and over and over and over again, right? So now I should be only rendering this text, or displaying this text, updating the text every 1 second. So now if I press play, now it's fucking readable. Right, well, it's badly readable. All right, maybe 1 second is way too much. Well, it's changing every 1 second, but it's not the greatest. So instead of 1 second, we'll just do 500 milliseconds. 33 500. So that's happening every 500 milliseconds. We're updating the text. Still not great. Let's do 250 milliseconds. So every 250 milliseconds, we're changing the text. All right, so that's a little bit more decent. This is not super accurate. It's going between 533. So the frame rate is not completely, you know. Maybe we can do 100 milliseconds? Question mark? Yeah, this is a lot more decent. So if I do a bunch of bullets, my frame rate should drop. So now at 250, 200 milliseconds, 166, 142, 125, 111, 88, 88, 100, 90, 90, 80. Now I'm running at like 83 frames, right? There you go. Cool. And I update this text every 100 milliseconds. So whoa, calm down. Every 100 milliseconds, I calculate my FPS and I render and I update my text. Now I really, really don't like my frame rate. It jumps by 10 frames. It's not super accurate. And for the love of God, for the life of me, I do not know why. What I'm gonna try to do is just change this to double. Maybe double is a little bit more precise. So double is more precision, as you know. Instead of a float, we're just gonna do double. This is gonna be a double. Keep these as integers. Okay. And this is gonna be a double. As milliseconds should return an int32. Is there any way we can return a more precise number? Microseconds is 64, milliseconds is 32, seconds is float. So I can do microseconds, right? That would be a double. That would be super precise, but all of our calculations have to be in microseconds now. We'll try microseconds in a minute, in a little bit. But let me just switch everything to double and see if this helps. It does not. It does not help. Yeah, it does not help. All right, let's try microseconds. Dot as microseconds. In a microsecond, there's 1 second has 100,000 microseconds. Let me just check. Google. Check me. Seconds to microseconds. So in 1 second there is 1 million 1 2 3 1 2 3. 1 second has a million microseconds. 1 milliseconds or 1,000. Yeah, same thing. So yeah, 1 second has a million microseconds. Why are you going scientific notations all of the sudden? Can you not do scientific notation, please? I'm stupid, and as a stupid person, and I speak for all stupid people, I cannot read scientific notations. Now I understand that this is 1 plus 6 zeros next to it. I get that because it says 1e plus 6. So actually I can read scientific notation, but my brain has to process that. So Google, can you not, please? Fucking Google. Whatever. So this is microseconds. Delta time is going to be in microseconds. So now I need to increment. I'm incrementing all of this, and I can't check by 1,000. So this is now milliseconds. In order to do it in microseconds, I need to add 3 more zeros. So this is 1,000 This is 100,000. Guys, the conversion. Let's do conversion. 1 second equal to 1 million microsecond. 1,000 milliseconds equal to 1 million microseconds. Okay, so before we were incrementing by 100 milliseconds, and we know that 1,000 milliseconds equal to 1 million microseconds. So that means if I remove a 0 from here, then I need to remove a 0 from here. So we go down from 1 million to 100,000. Crazy. So we just need to add 3 more zeros. I know, it's fancy. All right, let's see if this calculates a little bit better. So we need to do the same thing for FPS. We're no longer dividing by 1,000 milliseconds. We're dividing by 1 million milliseconds. So 1, 2, 3, not millisecond, microseconds. We're dividing by 1 million microseconds. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then a 1. All right. Double, 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 double. Everything is a double. Let's press play. Is this going to give you a more accurate frame rate? Well, everything is going super fast. Like super fucking fast. Because all of our calculations are now have to be... Okay, so what I can do... This is precise, right? This is super precise. So what I can do, I can divide this entire thing by 1,000. So now this goes back to milliseconds. So if you take 1 million, here's the thing. You take 1 million, divided by 1,000, you now go back to microseconds, milliseconds. So I'm taking microseconds, dividing it by milliseconds. So now this data is milliseconds. So I'm hoping that this will still be precise while still dealing with milliseconds. So is that the case? Or not? It's not the case. It says I'm running at 33 FPS, which I know for a fact that's wrong. So, oh, this is 1,000. Oops. Sorry, it should be 100. And this is 100, not 1,000. I mixed those up. Sorry. This is 1,000. Yeah, look at that frame rate. Now this is, there you go. That's a frame rate I can deal with. Look, now it works. Thank you. Thank you, frame rate. Steam, SFML. So now this is a frame rate I can deal with, right? It's jumping up in there, which is good. All right. So let me go over as a review to explain to you what I have done. First of all, we need to understand conversions. It's really important. 1 second equal to 1,000 milliseconds. 1 milliseconds equal to 1,000 microseconds. And I assume microseconds is a U. I think micro... Can you work with me here? Microseconds. Symbol. Nice. US. Yeah, I'm right. See, I'm a genius. So 1 milliseconds is 1,000 microseconds. 1 second is 1,000 milliseconds, right? We were the entire time dealing with milliseconds. The problem with milliseconds is that it wasn't precise enough. You can see that if I hover over milliseconds, it returns an int 32. And int 32 is an integer with 32 bits. We didn't talk about bits. We didn't talk about the sizes of variables. We'll talk about that later on, right? But essentially, the data we were receiving wasn't precise enough, right? So to get more precision out of our numbers, right, we can drop down to microseconds, and microsecond returns an int 64, which is basically a double, right? Which is a lot of precision, right? It's super precise, and so we do this as a double, right? So now the problem is, if we are dealing with microseconds, that means my code here will not work, because here I'm checking if the timer is bigger than 100 milliseconds. And in a second, there's 100 milliseconds, meaning you do 100 plus 100, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is 1 second. So you have to do this 10 times to get to 1 second. So this is 1/10 of a second. So I'm checking if the timer is bigger or equal to 1/10 of a second or 100 milliseconds, then what we should do is take our frame rate, or make a variable called FPS. Take 1 second or 1000 milliseconds and divide it by our delta time, which means that I'm taking 16.6667, right, and dividing it by 1 second to figure out how many frames I have in 1 second. So if I know, so here's the thing, if I know that a single frame takes this much time to render on the screen, and I want to find how many frames are being rendered in 1 second, I just take this number and divide it by 1000 milliseconds. Why did I pick 1000? Why did I do 1? Well, because 16.6667 is in milliseconds. And so if I want to do the math, I need to do it in milliseconds. If this is milliseconds, we have to do this in milliseconds. So now I get, I do 1000, I do 1000 divided by 16.6667. And I get 59 FPS, 59.99, which is 60 frames, right? So that's how I find how many frames I have. I know that a single frame takes this much time to render. So in order to find how many frames I'm rendering in 1 second, I take 1 second, divide it by 16.667, and I find out that I'm rendering 59.9999 frames per second. Now, this is in milliseconds. If I want to do the math in 1 second, then I do 1 second divided by 0.0166667, which is 59.9998 FPS. And so this number, 0.001667, is milliseconds in seconds, right? All right. So that's out of the way. That's out of the way. We're dealing with milliseconds, and we're always, as programmers, we're always dealing with milliseconds. So this is milliseconds, this is milliseconds, this is milliseconds. We love milliseconds. Okay, milliseconds are not precise enough, sadly, in this context. So what we need to do, I love delta time timer, best variable name ever. In this context, we need more precision. To get more precision, we need to do it in microseconds. All right. And so the problem is, with that logic, 1000 milliseconds equal to 1 freaking million microseconds, meaning all of our code, everywhere we do some calculations, our math calculations, when we were doing multiplying by delta time, now we need to take into consideration that this is now in microseconds, not milliseconds. And let me tell you, microseconds suck, okay? Because we're just used to, as programmers, we're just used to working with milliseconds. So, to fix that problem is essentially, I take my microseconds, which is 1,000,000, and I divide them by 1000. And make sure you divide by a double. This is a double. Don't divide by 1000 like this. Apparently it doesn't matter, but just divide. If this is a double, we're dividing by a double, right? Keep things, on the same page. What is that gonna do? So now I have 1 million microseconds equals to 1000 milliseconds, which is equal to 1 second. Okay? So if I take this 1 million microseconds, divide it by 1000, I get 1000 milliseconds. So now I'm back to using milliseconds. I just take my microseconds, divide it by 1000, and I'm back to using milliseconds with the added advantage of having precision, or this much precision, right? That's it. That's all we're doing. All we're doing here. That's all nice and dandy. And this took 2 fucking hours. Cannot believe I've been streaming for 2 hours. It is 2 a.m. This coffee, I don't feel tired at all. I don't know what this coffee is doing, but it's doing wonders right now. Let me tell you that. Coffee. Fuck yes. All right. So that's it. Now we're doing all of our calculations. We're still doing our calculations in milliseconds. Nothing changes because I'm taking my macro, dividing it by 1000. This is all fantastic. That means if I press play now, we should get a more precise frame rate. Like so. You can see before it was just 300 and 500, either those two numbers. Now we go in between, and if I shoot some bullets, it's a little bit more precise. We're jumping between 200 frames to 100 and so on and so forth. It's a little bit nicer. It's a little bit better, right? Which is cool. Right? Okay. One thing I can do is I can isolate the event loop. So I can completely ignore the event loop. So what I can do here is I can say, if I don't want to measure my event loop, if you don't want to, that's your call. But I wanna do a test here. I just wanna measure the update and draw and kind of ignore event loop. So in here, I am restarting my clock over here, right? Well, the first thing I need to do is do dot elapsed, get elapsed time. Okay. I would like to restart my clock here. Okay, so what happens here is, actually let's do it this way. I restart my clock at the very beginning. Actually let's do it this way. Okay. I get the elapsed time, right? I the first frame, which is gonna be 0. It's gonna be 0. I do this math. I restart my clock. I get my elapsed time. This is gonna be always 0. This is gonna be wrong. This is all wrong. Hold on. This is all wrong. Yeah, this is all wrong. This is very, very, very wrong. What I should do is I should no. I just want to measure this part of the code. I don't care about this. So if I get my elapsed time, that's my delta time. I pass my delta time everywhere. I restart it. And then when I restart it, if I restart it here, I get my delta time. I do all of this, and I go in my event loop, and I restart it. So when I restart it, I'm basically measuring all of this, and this, and there I restart my clock. So what I can do here, I can restart my clock here. So I restart my clock here, and then I restart it here. I do all of this, I restart it, which is wrong. This is not gonna work. Nope, it's not gonna work. How can I just measure this section of my code? That is the question. I'm gonna use the excuse of it's 1:51 a.m. right now and I'm tired and that's why I can't think of the solution. Not because I'm stupid. Just keep that in mind. That's really important. What I can do is I can do this here. And then I can do this here. We'll just do delta time equal to 0 here. I get my elapsed time here. Delta, just do this here. I'm just trying something, guys. Just give me a second. So, I get my delta time here. I make it equal to this part, which means when I do this, it's saved in delta time. Right? Once I do that, I should restart my clock. Okay. I get my elapsed here. And then I can do clock.restart. I restart my clock. The delta time I got was from the previous frame. I do all of this. I get my elapsed time. I restart my clock. And that's the elapsed time from my last frame. Alright, so in theory, this should work. And so now I'm only measuring my update and render, hopefully. Yeah, look at that. Okay. Alright, so there's no reason to do this, as far as I can tell. Like, there's no reason to do it at all. One thing I want to check is if I move my mouse. So usually in SFML, if you move your mouse, your frame rate kind of increases and decreases. And it does. Look, if I move my mouse, look at the frame rate when I move my mouse. Okay. Look, it's going to 1,000 at some point. Right, see how that my mouse goes out of the screen. So I thought if I just measure this time here, that's gonna be fixed. But I guess not. There's no reason to do this. I mean, keep your update loop here. So we're just gonna, it was just an experiment I was trying to do. Doesn't matter. But again, to explain this code just real quick, my frame starts, I do my loop, I restart my clock to 0. My clock is 0. Delta time, I calculate it in microseconds. Right now it's 0, so like this delta time will be 0. I do my frame, and then I calculate how long it took since I restarted my clock. So I restart, I calculate how I do my frame, and then I calculate how long all of this took, and I save it in delta time. So the next frame, I restart my clock again. I restart my clock again. So I should save this in here. So I restart my clock, I start measuring this, and I put this in here, and I save delta time in here, in this variable, right? Now delta time is stored, I restart my clock, and this delta time is basically the previous frame, how long the previous frame took to render. So let me see if that does anything. Let's do 1,000, see 1,000, does 1,000 come back? That's still there. Not as noticeable. It's definitely there. It's still there. This code did absolutely nothing. I thought it would be a little bit more precise in terms of frame rate, in terms of my calculations. Because I don't want to calculate the event loop. The event loop is fucking stupid. So if I put a breakpoint here, let me see the event loop. What happens? Do I step into this? Just step over. Step over. Okay, I don't even step into the event loop, so it's not a worry. Like, there's no calculations happening here. So never mind, doesn't matter, doesn't matter. What I'm doing just sucks, doesn't matter. Nothing matters here. I was just trying to play with some stuff and just kind of experiment with this a little bit and see what happens. But just go back to the old code. The old code was fine. I restart my clock. When I restart my clock, I get the delta time, and I have my delta time calculator right here. I send it over here. This calculations will include my event loop, my frame, my update, and my frame rate, or my render part of my loop. But yeah, this is all fine. This is all Gucci Bucci. I can't believe I said Gucci, but you know. There you go. That's it. Clean code, clean, nice, organized. Yeah. I'm not gonna put my constructors here. Maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't. Do I need to? No, I don't need to in this case. I do need it to in this case because I said that I don't like to have this 0.5 f, these two guys. I don't like to assign stuff in here. I like to assign them in the constructor. So I'm just gonna create the constructor for the player real quick. And a destructor. Create these lovely guys. Right? And so I'm going to copy these two variables. In my constructor, which is at the top, I'm going to do list initialization. Do this. Do that. And then comma. This. And that. Do all this on one line. There you go. So I initialized my bullet speed to 0.05 or 0.5 f, and this is 1.0 f. So now in here, I can just remove these from here. I don't need to do it, and I don't like doing it, like I mentioned. I don't like doing it in the header file. I like to do it in the source file like that, so that's fine. So I have a constructor from a player, destructor from a player. That's all nice and dandy. I will do the same for skeleton. No reason to do it in skeleton, but I'm just, you know, consistency's sake. I'll just create it. I don't think I really need to. It's just extra code that I'm writing that I unnecessary. But that's fine. I'll do it, I guess. Maybe one day I'll decide to delete them. I don't know. There you go. Our game should work exactly the same way. Nothing should have changed, or nothing should change. Right? Okay. Bullets moving. I'm rendering my frame rate. All that. So, in those 2 hours, I've only shown the FPS and I've only rendered text on the screen. I didn't even render the health of my player. I didn't render the health of my enemy. Which is a whole thing that I have to do. Alright, that's it. It's been 2 hours anyways. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes. Holy fuck. I'll end it here. And tomorrow, now that we have our frame rate rendered here, tomorrow I'll jump, if I have time to render, to do things tomorrow, we'll do the rest, right? We'll reduce the enemy health. We'll render the enemy and the player health, destroy the bullets when they hit the edge of screen, destroy the bullets when they out the screen, when they hit the player. And yeah, there you go. These tutorials, this series, should move a lot faster once I cover the concept, like the basic concept of C++, like constructors, destructors, all these language-specific things. Once everyone kind of knows these things, like we're gonna start programming a lot faster, and we're gonna start implementing a lot faster, features a lot faster. The reason things just are taking forever is because I have to go into detail about these basic things, and they're kind of required, right? They're kind of important. Not kind of, they are important. But anyways, that's it. I'll end it here. I'll see you guys. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed. Do me a favor, hit that like button. It helps a shit ton. And there's like 80% of the people who watch these videos are not subscribed. Guys, can we subscribe? Can we hit that 1,000? Okay, I need to hit 1,000 subscribers. Can we do that? Can we have a goal? 1,000 subscribers? Can we hit that, please? All right. If you're watching this, you're not subscribed, hit that red button. It's kind of cool. Red buttons are cool. Come on, you gotta hit it. Anyways, I'll see you guys. Talk to you later. Have an awesome week or day, and yeah, play Halo Infinite. Don't forget, Halo Infinite is important. Play it. See you guys. Take care. Bye bye.